All right, welcome to Tech Time. This is Mr. Nchuso. I'm with Chris this week. We are going to be talking about top 10 movie fights. It can be one versus one, lot versus a lot, one versus a lot, or whatever you want. So we're going to just go 10. We're going to start with Chris. Chris, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is the final fight in Avengers Endgame
Ooh, that's a good one. Why'd you pick that one?
because it has all the characters I grew up with watching.
Number 10, like I thought that would be higher. That didn't make my list because I don't really consider it like a fight. It's one of my favorite ending action scenes, but there's not, I mean, there's fights, but it just, for me, that's not what I think of fights. But very good answer. Nothing can give you goosebumps better than that fight, right? All right, my number 10, from when I was about your age, John Smith versus Neo at the end of the first Matrix movie. That is just an awesome fight scene. It takes all of these things from all old Hong Kong and Chinese films, puts it in a blender, adds some sci-fi to it. It just is awesome. The shots that they do, how much they train, the wire work, the choreography, it is just that movie builds and builds to that point, and it's one of those times where it didn't really you didn't feel like the air being let out with the final fight. It just added and added and added. And you got to that fight, you're like, yep, that was worth it. So my number 10 is John Smith versus Neo in the original Matrix. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is the Guardians of the Galaxy and Arrow scene,
From 1 or 2?
too.
2? Oh, when they're in the prison and he gets it?
Yep.
Yeah, great use of songs. A song that you wouldn't think would work with that, but really does. So, yeah, I love that scene. I love everything that happens before that too, with Rocket trying to get it, and he just brings a thumb. I mean, Groot bringing a thumb to Rocket and everything like that. It's just a funny scene. A thing with Guardians too is I think the first 2/3 of that movie is really fun, and then once they start battling all the robot ships and the Ego Planet and everything, it just becomes sci-fi special effects spectacle that just kind of bores me.
Yeah.
It's up to when they escape. Like that's the last good part of that movie, and the rest is just like it's okay, but it was like it was at like a 9 or 10, and then the rest of the movie's like a 6 to me.
Yeah.
All right, my number 9. It's a different one. It's the first battle of the Scott Pilgrim versus the Evil X in Scott Pilgrim. Have you ever seen that movie?
Nope, not at all.
Oh, it's such a funny movie because you're watching this movie and you think it's romantic comedy, just typical romantic comedy with like a nerd kind of bent. And all of a sudden, he meets one of his new girlfriends, her evil exes, and it becomes a video game fight with this guy that's of Indian descent. He like starts doing like a Bollywood song and like serpents come out. And you're like, what am I watching? And it's just one of the most unexpected scenes. And I remember seeing it in the theater and people just weren't sure what they're seeing. Some were going with it and laughing. Others were like, this is not what I thought this movie would go to. But it's one of the best movies that just had this like pivot in the middle of the movie. You're like, this is
They
crazy.
didn't read the comic book before we see
Yeah,
it.
exactly. They didn't read it or they didn't think they were going that hard. All right, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is Ladybug versus the Hornet from the Bullet Train.
Oh, okay. So another one that's pretty recent. Did you like Bullet Train?
Yeah, I love the movie.
I don't understand why so many people hated it. I thought it was such a fun time.
It was a fun time.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I like that one. My number 8, it's from Kill Bill Volume 1, The Bride versus the Crazy 88s. Have you seen Kill Bill?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's such a good movie. Both of them. I like 2 more because it's more story driven, but the first one, she's in this restaurant and she's going after the head of the Yakuza. And before she can get to her, she has to fight like her henchmen. It's called the Crazy 88s, and they all have swords. And it's a, like 10, 15-minute fight scene that got so bloody and so disgusting. They had to, like, Tarantino actually had to turn it black and white because there's so much blood, and he would have gotten an NC-17 rating. But it's also like really funny because there's one part like a small child is trying to fight her, like a 12, 13-year-old, and she like cuts his sword down, and then instead of stabbing him, she like puts him over her lap and like spanks him and says, "I will not mess with the Yakuza." It's awesome. It's a great scene. Kill Bill is worth watching. That's something you should watch. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is the Boris the Animal versus Agent J from Men in Black 3.
I don't even remember this one. So is this when he goes back in time?
Yeah, this is the one where he goes back in time. Boris was the villain of the movie.
So why'd you like this fight scene?
Because it was fun and it was the last Men in Black with Will Smith in it.
Okay. My number 7, I already know is not going to be on your list because you told me you didn't like this movie. But one of my favorite Marvel movies, the elevator fight in Captain America: Winter Soldier, because it's another time that this movie is just building to this scene. You see people getting in, and you understand what's going to happen, and then the fight just happens. And I love close quarter fights. You know, when they can't move and more realistic kind of movement, and everybody's just fighting for their life in this. And it's one of the first times you really see what the super soldier serum does for him because he just takes out a whole elevator of specially trained killers. So the elevator fight from Winter Soldier is my number 7. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is Batman versus Superman.
Boo! Come on. There's nothing in there that should make a top 10.
It is just fun.
You find it fun? You don't find it weird that the fight ends because both of their moms were named Martha?
It was just funny to me watching it.
All right. My number 6, probably a movie you've never heard of. It's a Thai film called The Protector, and it's about a guy that gets mad because they kidnap and kill his elephant. So it's a one-take shot where he goes into this bar slash hotel slash lounge, and it's a one shot that he's going up this ramp because this whole place just goes in a circle, and he just keeps going up, and it's not cut, and he literally fights for over 8 minutes without a cut. So if they messed up one thing, they had to start all over again. And it's just one of the coolest things. So Chris and everybody watching, look up One Take Shot Protector on YouTube and just marvel at that scene. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Iron Man and War Machine versus the drones in the second Iron Man.
Oh, at the end of Iron Man 2?
Yep.
All right. So what'd you like about that?
It's just them just going crazy with their new Iron Man suits.
All right. My number 5 was from one of my favorite movies of all time called Warrior with Tom Hardy in it. It's when his brother is fighting Kubo to get to the finish. And what it is it's winner take all, and they get over $1 million. And his brother, played by Joel Edgerton, needs this money or he loses his house. And he goes against Kurt Angle, who is a WWE wrestler. Huge. They were moving this guy up. His name's Kubo, and he's like this Russian bear, and he's the hardest guy to fight. And like the brother is just getting his butt kicked this way and that. And then like at the end of the second round, his trainer just goes to him. He's like, You want me to stop? I'll stop this fight. If I stop this fight, you don't have a house. Do you not want to have a house to go to?" And then like it starts again, and he gets him in this chokehold, and it's just goosebumps. And like I cheered when I saw this movie because I love this scene so much. Warrior is literally one of my favorite movies of the last years.
That movie.
Oh, it's so good. I'm not even a UFC fighter, like a fan of fighting. I love this movie because it's just so much personal stakes. Because the end is just these two brothers that have been estranged, and all this stuff happened with their family. They have to fight each other. Oh, it's so good. Watch Warrior. All right, what's your 4?
My 4 is Godzilla versus King Kong.
Their fight at the end?
Yeah, I like it because people were just hyping up King Kong, like King Kong's gonna beat Godzilla, and I was like, not this time.
My favorite part of that is when King Kong uses a skyscraper to pop his shoulder back into place because he just goes up to it. It's like, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Because you see that in movies all the time, but never seen like a 80-foot or however tall King Kong is using a building to do it. Yeah. All right. My number 4 is the original Old Boy. This is a very film bro answer because anybody that's like thinks of fights, they'll do this. But his hallway fight when he gets when he gets released from his prison that he was in, and he just has a hammer and all these guys, and it's another one take where he is just beating people down with his hammer. It's a great scene. All right. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Carnage versus Venom from Let There Be Carnage.
Okay. That's an interesting one. I watched that movie. I honestly cannot remember the fight. The only part I remember that is when like he goes to like the nightclub and starts dancing and he has all the neon stuff on him. I'm like, what is this movie? So, interesting one. My number 3, have you seen Inception?
Not really.
You haven't seen the Inception? Oh, no. Inception's good. Another very film bro-y answer because it's Christopher Nolan, but if the man is great, the man is great. The hallway scene in that where he's in the hotel and it's flipping over and over because he's in a dream and the car's flipping, so like he has to fight on the roof and on the ceiling and beating all these guys. Just an awesome fight. So, number 2 for you.
The One versus the Axe Gang, Kung Fu Hustle.
Okay, I do love every fight in that could be on there. Have you ever seen the other one, Shaolin Soccer, that the guy made?
No.
It's like a Mighty Ducks movie, but instead of, hockey, it's soccer. And instead of just them being goofy, all of them know Kung Fu. And it's like crazy. It's like Mortal Kombat meets the Mighty Ducks. It's really fun. You'd probably like that. It's called Shaolin Soccer, or some places it's Kung Fu Soccer. You should look that up. My number 2 is another foreign film from The Raid 2. I had a hard time figuring out which one to do. Should it be Hammer Girl? Should it be Baseball Guy? But I picked the final fight between the bad guy and our hero in the kitchen. It's one of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen because they're just cutting the heck out of each other with small knives. And just, it is literally a fight to the death, and it's just brutal. If you like John Wick movies, watch The Raid. It's the same sort of thing, but even done better, I think. So that's my number 2.
I've only seen the first John Wick movie.
Oh, John Wicks are great, too. One of my honorable mentions is the John Wick thing. I'll let you know. So your number 1.
My number 1 is the church scene from Kingsman.
Oh, great scene with Freebird on the soundtrack and him just killing everybody in the church.
Yeah, it was just blood and gore. And
yep. I love Matthew Vaughn. I think he's kind of under respected. He the Kingsman is great, but Stardust was great. Yeah. Layer Cake. I love Matthew Vaughn.
I don't really like the new Kingsman.
No, the first one's still the best, but he is a really good director. All right, so before my number 1, I got to do some honorable mentions because I came up with 14, so it was hard to get down. The first Creed movie, the one-take fight, is awesome. In John Wick 3, I love the knife fight. And then in Anchorman, it's just a fun one, but the news crew fight, like the Rumble, where Brick might have killed a man. Yeah, I killed a guy with a trident. Oh, the news fight scene's great. So my number 1, it's an obscure movie, but Gotta Be Me, is the fight between the two heroes in They Live, when Roddy Piper is trying to get Keith David to put on the glasses so he can see the aliens, and he won't do it. And these are both the good guys, and they beat the living snot of each other for 10 minutes, and there's no music, no nothing. It's just these two guys punching each other, one going, put on the glasses, the other one's like, no, and just knocking each other out. It's like this bar brawl outside in the alleys, and then it just ends with them. He's like, oh yeah, you were right. But I've never seen a movie where the two guys that are the heroes that are going to team up beat each other up so bad. They Live, I love that movie. God bless John Carpenter. He's made so many good movies that I just love. So that's my list. What do you think? Any new movies that you want to see?
I kind of want to see Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear? No, I meant of the list of the movies that I had in mind. Any that seemed interesting to you?
The Warrior.
Oh, Warrior? Yeah, Warrior's really good. So yours were a list that only you could come up with. Yes. Very eclectic, but there are, if you haven't seen Bullet Train, it's on Netflix now. Just watch it. It's fun. Don't listen to the critics that wanted something, I don't know, I guess headier or something.
If you don't like Bullet Train, they got the Santa movie.
There you go. But for Tech Talk, I'm Ryan, Mr. R. I'm with Chris, and we'll be back next week. Thank you very much.